Let's go to question number 4. This is from Sin Bowl, who says, oh, and by the way, all our questions are full. We've got all 20 questions, and I'm just going to blast through them here. Hey, Mike, how do you approach / convince a Muslim that Jesus is more than just a prophet? So Sin, I'm not as experienced in Islamic apologetics and Islamic stuff as you probably need to answer this question better. My approach when I would come to a Muslim personally would be to just start by asking them tons of questions, understand where they're coming from, have they read their Quran, what do they think it teaches, and I mean, the different angles I would consider approaching would be trying to look at and gather things the Quran or the Hadith say about Jesus that are positive, maybe historical analysis of some of the claims in the Quran, perhaps showing the scriptures and having conversations about that. It's tough because with Muslims, what you have is, hundreds of years after Jesus, you have this new religion rise up that is kind of like a hijacking of Judaism and Christianity. I mean, although in a sense Christianity is Judaism fulfilled, but they're saying, no, we're the real Jewish people. It wasn't Isaac that was the son of the promise. It's our people that were, and then we're the replacement. Then when it comes to Jesus, the Quran affirms that he's a prophet. They believe that Jesus was a prophet. But like you said, what about more than just a prophet? When it comes to the cross, Islam teaches, of course, that Jesus never actually died on the cross, that God would never let such a fate happen to one of his prophets. That's a challenge you're going to have to overcome. They also teach that, as you know probably, that God has no son, that this is blasphemy, and it's a horrible sin. It's a shirk in Islam to declare that God has a son. And so what you see when you look at it, when you zoom out, as you go, Islam would affirm that the Bible is God's word, but then they'll affirm that it's been distorted in vague ways we won't specify. You just need to trust that our theology is correct. And our theology denies the death of Christ, the resurrection of Christ, and the personhood of Christ, his deity. So he's not the Son of God. It denies central aspects of Christianity. So, I mean, you could go a historical route where you try to show that the evidence for the resurrection of Christ and his death is really strong. In fact, atheist scholars even would say that the death of Jesus is one of the most certain facts in all of history, that he was crucified by Pontius Pilate. One of the most certain facts in all of history. You could show that the Quran, perhaps a different angle, is problematic in many of its teachings, teaching that the sun sets in a pool of mud. This is a teaching in the Quran. You can't really find a way around that. It says that Alexander the Great traveled to the place where the sun set in a pool of mud, and people lived there. This is one of the teachings in the Quran. The Quran's difficult to read, difficult to understand, partly because it's not arranged in any way that makes obvious sense to people. So they most often arrange it by longest chapter to shortest chapter. So this isn't chronological at all. It's like for the most part, longest to shortest chapter. Imagine taking someone's writings and just being, put the longest stuff first and the shortest stuff last, and it becomes difficult to read and understand it. So yeah, what I'd recommend is you go and check out maybe some of David Wood's content, or Alan Schleman. Alan Schleman from Stand to Reason's done a lot of stuff on Islam, and you can check that out as well. And there's plenty of others. I'm not the best source on that. So I would start with lots of questions. Find out what this person believes, because later you can hold them to it in a positive way. You can say, hey, you said this, now let's talk about that. And pray. Do not neglect prayer for this person and prayer for those conversations.